Hi everybody of the vinyl community, John back again. So this video is going to be, well, I'm going to show a few recent acquisitions and pickups, finds. Also I want to sort of tie up a few little sort of loose ends here and there, and I've got a few sort of ponderings I'd like to share. But I'm going to start off by doing a couple of channel call outs. A short while ago, Gregory Short brought to my attention, or to our attention, a guy called Chris Profi, and I believe Chris is a Canadian. He likes to, in his videos, he likes to talk about his records and CDs and the music that he likes, and he likes to sort of share his insights and thoughts into the music that he's showing. Great channel, recommend him. So go along and check out Chris Profi. And also there's another person, Vinyl Dale, and Hunt for the Holy Grail. I think you have to go and look at his channel just for that incredible name. Brilliant. So Dale is another record collector. He seems to have quite a vast collection. And he's been showing it in the videos that he's been making, broken down into time periods, sort of 80s, 90s, that sort of thing. He's just recently shown some Tom Petty records, which I thought was quite interesting to see. Anyway, so go check out Vinyl Dale and his hunt for the Vinyl Grail. So, records. I'm listening to Camel, by the way. I kept it low. Apparently someone didn't like the the music that I was playing in one of my recent videos, but oh well, you don't have to watch. So here's a record. This is a record that I picked up on a trip to Sweden in the autumn that I took. I think it was in September, October. I've shown a couple of records just in my video before last, or was it my last video, I can't remember, that I picked up on that same trip. This is one that I picked up, 20 krona, £2 roughly. I was very, very happy to have found this. I bought this album when it came out on CD, and it blew me away. It's one of those records that is completely of its time, for me anyway. I was an art student, and I was heavily into David Bowie. This was really good. Very raucous, very raw. Much better than anything else they did. I mean, their second album was a big sort of letdown, I think, and anything else they did wasn't really particularly great either. But this is really top notch, in my view. So very happy to have found this album, Tin Machine, in lovely condition. You can't really go wrong. The record I found fairly recently, this is What Happened, The Beat. I understand that in the USA this is called the English Beat, because there's another band called The Beat. They're sort of like a ska band. The guy, I can't remember his name, the guy that sings in this band, I understand he died fairly recently. I'll put it here somewhere. I think he died recently. I think I remember hearing that in the news. But original album again. I paid £1 for this. I even get surprised myself these days when I go out and find these really amazing records in charity shops. And so many people dismiss charity shops and say, you never find anything good there, it's all rubbish and scratched up and that. Yeah, okay, most of it is, but that's the joy, when you find those diamonds in the rough, for little or nothing. It makes it all worth it. This is a Chuck Berry compilation, Motivating. I wasn't sure whether I was going to pick this one up. I'll show the records that I found this together with in another video. There's a big bunch of Status Quo records. I assume this probably belonged to the guy that whoever donated his Status Quo records to the charity shop. But I looked at this and I thought, I've got 2 or 3 Chuck Berry compilations, you know. Do I really need another one? I quite like the cover, and it's in relatively good shape. But what made me decide yes was that it's on chess, and I'm not really one to look a gift horse in the mouth, so I decided, that gift horse is going to come home with me. Again, another record cost me £1. Great stuff. So a cheapie here on MFP. This is Dave Clark 5. A session with Dave Clark 5. So although this is on the Music for Pleasure label. It is actually a studio album that's just been reissued on MFP. This is another great record that I found for £1. Found for £1 in a charity shop. It's on Fontana. So this is Manfred Mann, as is. I was very excited about this when I saw it. I thought, brilliant, you know. It's got these flip backs that I think they don't have in America. I know Bull of Pacific Northwest often talks about these flip backs. But also, sadly, it looks like somebody's been putting their size 10s on the back of this record. I can't imagine why, but there you go. It is what it is. So I got very happy when I saw this because I particularly like very early Manfred Mann. I like what's his name, Paul Jones, the singer. But this apparently marks the point where he left the band. I was surprised. I always think of him as being, you know, the Manfred Mann singer. But apparently he left after the second album and went off and did other things. Nothing particularly huge, but he didn't seem to look back. But it's good to have. It's less bluesy and R&B. The early stuff is really sort of right there in its sort of British Invasion style music, but I don't know, this is a bit more marketed to the pop audience, I would say.
Says she has too much to do.
compilation for £1. The Pretenders, the singles. I guess I've got about the first 5 albums by the Pretenders, and I particularly like the first 2. They're great. And I saw this, I thought, well, you know, might as well get the compilation. And it cost me £1, so you know, I brought it home, cleaned up quite nicely, and I put it on, and I was quite surprised how familiar I am with the singles by the Pretenders, because I wouldn't list them as being one of my favourite bands or anything like that, but yeah, every single single on here I was familiar with, and I quite enjoyed it. I liked the experience of sitting down and listening to all these singles together, and my wife was sitting on the sofa while I was playing it, and yeah, I could tell that she was actually quite appreciating it too. Yeah, good record. If you see it, grab it. It's worth listening to. Now, here comes a bit of pondering. In one of my most recent videos, I think the last video that I did, or the one that I did before last, I showed a Bo Diddley record. It was a sort of reissue record that I bought for very little in a charity shop. A little bit more than most, but it was, you know, still a sort of fairly new record. 180 gram, great condition cover, you know, you could tell it was very new. Just in recent weeks I came across this record, Jake Bugg. Never heard of this chap before. It was one of those occasions where, yeah, I looked through everything in a charity shop, record wise. It was all the usual stuff that you don't want, you don't bring home. The only one that I did see that I was of any interest was this, and the main thing was that it was so relatively new, in good condition. That's all, although it's a little bit dusty. 180 gram, came with its download code and all that sort of thing, and so yeah, I brought it home because it only cost me £1, and I thought, well, you know, somebody's obviously spent a lot of money on this, have kept it for a short time, and for whatever reason passed it by, and it's ended up in a charity shop, much like my Bo Diddley record that I bought recently. And it made me think, maybe it's just my, you know, my luck or something, I don't know, but I'm wondering if we're coming now into this period that I've sort of predicted will happen for a while, where a lot of the resurgent interest in vinyl, you know, it's not just us sort of serious collectors, people that have done it for years, but it's a lot of, what would you say, I don't know, it's almost a bit like a fad, you know, people going out buying suitcase style record players, and maybe their mum will buy them a record or something like that to go with it, and you know, there's sort of almost kind of a superficial interest or sort of nostalgic kind of interest in these records, and people will go out and buy the classics, and maybe sort of enjoy the novelty of it for a while. And I'm wondering if we're not sort of coming now to the point where that novelty for some people may have gone over, and they're starting slowly but surely to move on to the next thing. So what I'm suggesting is that maybe, yeah, Joe Blogg's last Christmas got a Crossley record player, and his sister bought him a reissue of Rumours by Fleetwood Mac or something like that. Very expensive super duper deluxe edition reissue on super heavyweight vinyl, and he kind of enjoyed it for Christmas. It was good fun on Christmas Day, showed all his mates on Boxing Day, put it on the shelf, and there it gathered dust for a few weeks, and come full circle around the year or a couple of years or whatever, and he's thinking, oh, don't really need that anymore, you know, put it in the box with the other stuff to go to the charity shop. I feel that we're going to start to see a fair amount of that eventually, and I'm wondering, because I've sort of come across myself a couple of relatively new albums, obviously issued on vinyl for a particular market. I think that they're going to start coming now. That's my view. I don't know if anyone's got any views about that, any ideas, if they agree with what I'm saying. I said a similar thing to Björn in Sweden about his singles collection. A lot of people have bought these Beatles 45 collection box just recently. And yeah, I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it's really nice. I don't mean to discredit it in any way, but I think there's a lot of people out there that aren't sort of hardcore Beatles fans, or even hardcore record collectors for that matter, that will buy it, and eventually, yeah, the novelty's gone over, and it will end up in the charity chain. We'll see what happens. I may be completely wrong. So, what else am I going to do? Oh yeah, I recently picked up a copy of A Division Bell by Pink Floyd on CD, and I remember I bought that on cassette when it came out and listened to it, but I felt it was too new when when it came out, and I listened to it a lot. It was too new for me to really kind of form much of an opinion. I was kind of stoked that it had Nick Clegg-Clowes on there as a sort of extra songwriter. But this time when I picked it up on CD, I've been listening to it in the car for a few times, and it made me think back to that question that somebody asked about when do bands become a brand, and I felt that with Pink Floyd, I would suggest that Pink Floyd became a brand just at that time when they released that record, because I don't think that it's a Dave Gilmour record really. I don't think it's necessarily a particularly good album made by Pink Floyd. It's a record or an album made predominantly by David Gilmour with the intention of making a Pink Floyd record, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm kind of babbling a bit now. Whereas all the Floyd records up until that point, at least most of them anyway, were a product of the artists working on it, their art. Whereas I think Division Bell is almost like an attempt to make a Pink Floyd record to satisfy the customers, that's my view. Anyway, while I was thinking all that, I went back and listened to this. This is David Gilmour's first solo album. If you haven't heard this, you should check it out, because it's about as close as you'll get to a Pink Floyd record that's not a Pink Floyd record. I had this years. It's got a bit of scrawl on the cover, unfortunately, but it's a really, really good record. I like it. I like this as much as some of the sort of the classic Pink Floyd records. And to be honest with you, I'm glad I pulled it out, because I'd forgotten just how good it really is. I pulled out, I can't remember why now, but I pulled out this. This is Jeff Beck, Beckola. I've heard this album before for a long time. I used to have it on a CD, a Tufa CD. So it had this album, and it had another album called Truth, I think, which is another early Jeff Beck record. In fact, I think Truth was the Jeff Beck solo album. It just happened to have Ronnie Wood playing bass and Rod Stewart on vocals. And this is the next album featuring both those artists too, but by this time they've become the Jeff Beck group. Anyway, so I had a CD and I used to play that in my car and never really enjoyed it. I always sort of felt that I was, you know, having to, I don't know, sit it out until it finished. But things sound so much better on vinyl, don't they? You kind of hear them in a different context, I think, or perhaps more in the context of what you're supposed to hear them in. And I was really surprised that on this particular record, there was some sort of crossover almost, if you like. If you think, when this came out, Led Zeppelin were racing to make their first album. Jimmy Page was putting together Led Zeppelin. And, you know, they famously released a song, I can't remember what it was now, but they famously released a song that was also released just months before, I think, by Jeff Beck, and it's interesting to compare those. But on this record, you can hear, I mean, there are tracks on here that almost could quite happily fit on, you know, that first Led Zeppelin record. Anymore. I probably spoke way too much. Okay, well, thanks very much, everybody. I hope that wasn't too much of a drag. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to put a few needle drops in here, so I hope you enjoy some of those. Thanks very much for watching. Check out my next video. Bye.